Okay, before we start, Portal and Portal 2 were released in 2007 and 2011 respectively. Will anything you hear in this video be new? I don't know. What I do know, however, is that I recently revisited the Portal series. Oh, and felt the urge to talk about them again.
Fuck is that FOV?
Countless people before me have given their opinions on the games, and countless others couldn't give a shit what I have to say. Despite that, however, again, I felt the need to talk about this series and give my opinions of it. That, and I haven't uploaded a video in months. I've been getting really good at Deadlock.
Yeah, I'm about to go crazy. Oh yeah! Oh yeah, baby!
For those unfamiliar, that being all three of you, the Portal series is a duology of puzzle games developed by Valve, wherein which you use portals to navigate and complete levels in non-conventional, often clever ways, resulting in you finishing every test thinking you are, in fact, the smartest human being alive.
Oh my god, my brain is so big and wet and wrinkly, dude.
The premise of Portal was actually entirely stolen from a game called Nubacular Drop. Developed by Nuclear Monkey Software in 2005, the game had you solving puzzles using portals while escaping an evil lair. Being developed in Washington, USA, the game was featured at the DigiPen Institute of Technology Expo. This expo would give graduating uni students opportunities to show off what they had developed. The idea was to have students provide playable resumes to show off their skills and potentially land a job. As mentioned, NMS had Nubacular Drop on display and caught the eye of a man named Robin Walker, a renowned game developer and Valve's very own. Robin invited the small team back to Valve's headquarters to present the game, wherein which, and I'm sure you've all heard this story before, Gabe Newell hired and asked them to develop a Portal game in the Source engine in 15 minutes. 2 years later, as a part of the Orange Box, Portal was released. Yeah, they didn't actually steal it, that just sounded better. Beginning Portal, this time with a fully developed brain, I was able to immediately notice certain things that I hadn't when I was younger. The disingenuous, sanitized corporate feel is projected incredibly well. Notably, it's done in a way that whilst, yes, is heavy-handed and very obvious that the mean lady talking to you is mean, yet not so heavy as to become silly. Not to imply there aren't silly moments, however, GLaDOS, the aforementioned mean lady, is the AI designed to watch you complete your tests. She will constantly demean you and remind you of your insignificance. You being Shell, a voiceless, characterless, kind of protagonist that we play as throughout the series. The other party obviously being GLaDOS, voiced by the wonderful Ella McLain. Mrs. McLain at this point is the voice of Valve, having roles in Portal.
Good news. I figured out what that thing you just incinerated did.
Team Fortress 2.
You were always a disappointment.
And Half-Life 2.
Citizen reminder. Inaction is conspiracy. Report counter behavior to a civil protection team.
Similarly, her husband, John Patrick Lowry, has also had roles in both Team Fortress 2 as the sniper.
Someone's about to have a very bad day.
And Deadlock as Dynamo.
Oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Which, side note, or more diatribe, it was stated once by Valve employees that this hoop that falls in front of you at the end of Portal was meant to become a viral meme. This is very obviously a joke and something I'm sure someone just said for a laugh. However, I was recently playing Deadlock and I noticed when Dynamo uses his ultimate, you can see this hoop orbit around him. Coincidence?
Maybe.
In preparation for this retrospective, I played through both games with the developer commentary, which is like, come on, worth a like, right? I mean, come on. I won't fanboy over everything said in the commentary lest this video gets released when I'm in a home, but immediately spawning in, Kim Swift, one of the hired members from NMS, explains that during early playtests, players often thought the portals took them to alternate dimensions. To counter this, they deliberately put the first portal you walk through in view of the room you're in. Not only that, once outside of your chamber, the radio is also slightly muffled. The developer commentary is full of stuff like this, things that almost 2 decades later you don't really notice. However, at the time, it was crucial that a mechanic like this be shown in a way that immediately conveys understanding. Hey look, there he is. Going back for a moment to the facility and its atmosphere, despite having a surface level appearance of a pristine, once great Aperture science, there are lots of small identifiers that subtly tell you that you're in a place long past its prime, and eventually a planet past its prime. I've always known that both the Half-Life and Portal series share a universe, but for some reason I always thought that was a kind of secret. But no, once you've completed the tests and get to walk the halls of the observational deck, you can find the words Black Mesa just projected on a screen. Black Mesa, of course, being the facility that you traversed through in the original Half-Life, meaning that there's a half-decent chance that the world above you isn't doing too hot right now. However, before that, and my personal favourite example of the game's show don't tell philosophy, is during the elevator rides. Kilometers of cold steel and moving pistons echo throughout the facility, shaking the rooms and flickering lights to remind the player that despite the lasers, turrets, and sewage water, you might just be in the safest part of the facility. Admittedly though, it's unsurprising. Valve is incredible at conveying discomfort through sound. There's a playlist on YouTube compiling the Citadel's ambient noise, and it is so cool and creepy to hear these manufactured, unnatural soundscapes. This is the Citadel, by the way, from Half-Life 2. In fact, another one of my favorites is the Citadel's alarm, which is probably the most menacing noise I've ever heard. Segueing back to the elevator, this is unfortunately when my first problem manifests. Almost, not every, but almost every test chamber is followed by a loading screen, which in a game where the atmosphere is built up incredibly well, that just fucking kills it. This is, again, something both of the single-player Valve experiences share. And I do understand that this is most definitely a result of the time it was made in. However, I choose to interpret and critique things through the eyes I have today. You constantly find yourself on these elevators, and it makes me wonder, why wasn't this just the loading screen? Look, again, I haven't a clue of the technical constraints of 2007, so as much as this bothers me, I can look past it. For now. Exiting your second elevator, you receive the portal gun. The next 9 chambers, however, will only have you using the blue portal, with the orange portal being in static, fixed positions. On repeat playthroughs, this can be considered annoying to an extent, but it's very obviously done to ease the player into the mechanics, which again were completely new to the medium. Although, technically they had been done before portals released, but in fixed positions and not the main gameplay mechanic. Once you finally receive the ability to cast orange portals, the tests begin to open up and expect more from you. And, as a bonus, the game never takes the ability to cast both portals away from you. I'm looking at you. Listen up, this will be worth half your grade. I alluded to it earlier, but I played through Portal when I think I was about 10, and I distinctly remember taking fucking forever to complete some of these tests. Now, however, and I'm sure this is the case for many of you, I can complete some of these tests in under a minute. I wonder though if this is because I can remember them to an extent, or 2 decades later, thinking with portals is just second nature to anyone who's played a video game. Thing goes in, thing comes out is not exactly groundbreaking anymore, which might make you think I don't appreciate these puzzles, but in fact, I appreciate them more. I've played through lots of games with the tag puzzle, and more often than not, it simply means I'm gonna have to drag a physics object to a location to climb on it. It is incredibly uncommon that you find a game that has both puzzles and something else. And when I use the term puzzles, I mean activities that actively require thought. Games like Bubba Is You, The Witness, and Superliminal come to mind. Often it is the case with games like these, they are just puzzles. Sure, there are moments of quiet, perhaps a platforming segment here and there, but they don't often dip more than just a toe into a different genre. And that kind of annoys me. The exception comes when being placed in a game with both an incredibly solid puzzle mechanic and a world to immerse myself in. The former being the Portal gun and the latter being Aperture Laboratories. Because of Portal's atmosphere, puzzles, and short and sweet runtime, I remain immersed throughout the whole playthrough. Don't misconstrue that as me saying simple games are bad. God knows how much I love Firewatch, and that game is entirely walking and talking, but unless that simple thing your game is revolving around is good, and preferably good for more than just 5 minutes, it can very quickly become a little bit stale. I'm looking at you, wake up. Speaking of very quickly, Steam records I completed the game in 86 minutes, which really did surprise me. Again, when I was younger, I was an idiot, so it very likely took me triple the amount of time to finish it, but even still, that is not a whole lot of time. This is by no means a bad thing, mind you. God only knows how many games would benefit from shaving a few hours of its runtime. I just find it incredible that all of Portal can be this concise in its gameplay, mechanics, and lore. Lore that I'm only going to briefly explain today, as not to again end up in a home, but probably more during the second game segment. Once you've completed the 19 test chambers and survived GLaDOS trying to kill you, you progress to the dirty insides of the facility. Juxtaposed to the sterile feel of the test chambers, they're not completely unfamiliar if you've already stumbled across Ratman's hideouts, they're a bit more vague as to how to progress. I say a bit, even though the environment is still very obviously gamified, but not as much as the test chambers. It's cool. Using this tool in an environment that hasn't been designed for it is a really cool feeling. A really cool feeling enhanced by the fact that it only takes maybe 15 minutes. Immediately after those 15 minutes, you fight GLaDOS, and admittedly quite dull boss fight, but at the same time, I'm not entirely sure what you could do to enhance the experience. You stand in front of a portal, hit it with a rocket, put the core that falls off in the bin, do that again, do it again, bang. A short cutscene plays, you get dragged back down, cake, roll credits.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success.
The term revolutionary gets thrown around a lot. Often the thing being referred to as revolutionary is instead just really good. Portal and the orange box it came in, I see to be a truly revolutionary experience. One that I believe led to the current day puzzle genre being where it is. Despite being a little bit dated, although not nearly as much as some of the games released in that same year, and having a few imperfections here and there, Portal not only holds up, but holds up above the crowd in a way that desperately requires a replay. I don't think the original will ever be eclipsed, but it sure as hell could be expanded upon. One of Valve's greatest achievements, Portal 2 was released in 2011. The premise of Portal 2 was actually entirely stolen from a game called Portal, wherein which you use portals to escape an evil... That's not even funny. You know what this is. Everybody knows what this is. It's the highest rated game on Steam. And is a perfect example of a video game sequel. What makes a perfect sequel, you may ask? Well, to me at least, and I do believe this differs from person to person, but the same premise, perhaps exacted with a bit more finesse than its previous title, and more. New things that both add to the world and gameplay loop of the original. And when you know it, Portal does this perfectly. In the original, you had blocks, buttons, big buttons, turrets, balls, and 2 short segments using rockets. You also had 1 voice actor and a very strong base for the lore of Aperture science. In the sequel, however, you have all the previous items, deflection cubes, lasers, light bridges, catapults, moon gel, fast gel, jump gel, and 2 more voice actors that help retell the lore of the facility. Playing this straight after the original really does feel like night and day. Despite only being a 4-year gap between the two, the sequel just... I don't know, it just feels better to play. It looks gorgeous for a start, the chambers are much bigger, it doesn't jolt every time I change orientation walking through a portal, the menus are in high res, there's so many subtle changes that make the experience feel better overall. To be expected though, admittedly, reports state that roughly 15 people worked on the first game, while at least 35 made the sequel. Bigger team, bigger budget, better technology, it's no real surprise that it feels great to play. What is a surprise though, is waking up in a shitty old motel.
You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, look up at the ceiling. You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, look down at the floor.
Like the first game, you wake up inside a relaxation chamber, a disguised one no less, and are given the basic tutorial, look up, look down, rada rada rada. Interesting thing is, however, waking up you are told,
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 50 days. In compliance with state and federal regulations. All testing...
Then are directed to go back to bed. When you wake up the next time, however, the intercom states,
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 9. This courtesy call.
How long is oh my god. Well, there goes my fanfiction of Shell being in Half-Life 3. Oh well. Taking one look at the chambers, you can tell. I'm a big fan of the post-apocalypse Overgrown, so I can really vibe with something like this. It also helps increase the feeling of loneliness during a playthrough, going from I'm the only person in this facility to I am the only person on this planet. Back to the motel, the intercom is interrupted by a knock at the door. Opening it, we meet Wheatley, a personality caller trying to help us escape. Wheatley is voiced by Stephen Merchant, an English actor comedian, the tall bloke from Idiot Abroad.
Alright, so how's it going? Been doing any DIY recently?
Oh, hello, Dad. I'm been there
You're
for a
gay?
bit.
He's played very well and gives the game a stronger black comedy identity. This was the case in the first game as well, but it was much more, the situation I'm in is so fucked that it's kind of funny. Wheatley and Portal 2 for that matter are much more willing to go out of their way to install comedic moments throughout the experience.
And I just wanted to give you the chance to kill yourself now. Get to the lair. You just jump into that masher.
This is also likely the result of Portal 2's length. Being a slightly longer game, averaging around 5 hours, I'm sure the devs thought it wise to add a more consistently comedic tone. One that does wonders later to contrast the story of Aperture Science's birth and downfall. Which, speaking of, Stephen isn't the only new addition to the cast. During the segments below the facility, you listen to pre-recorded messages from the company's founder, Cave Johnson, played by the one, the only, J.K. Simmons.
Are you sure?
I don't think it's unpopular to say that Simmons' performance here steals the show. During the first few tests and his introduction, he plays a man leaning very heavily on the scientist part of Mad Scientist. However, as you progress and his sickness begins to fester, he slowly becomes more and more unhinged. Before that, however, and the reason we end up down here, after a botched escape attempt resulting in the revival of GLaDOS, you are put through a few test chambers very similar to the first game. Figure out the puzzle, open the door, simple stuff. Don't worry, I'll talk about them in a bit, hang on. After a while, however, you're pulled out of a test by Wheatley and eventually unplug GLaDOS and replace her with Wheatley, finally being sent to the surface.
Actually, why do we have to leave right now? Do you have any idea how good this feels?
Until he has a change of heart. After GLaDOS's W rage bait, he throws you and potatoes down into the mines below the facility. It's down here, thanks to the pre-recorded messages from Johnson, that we learn that GLaDOS is the artificial soul of a woman named Carolyn, the then right-hand woman of Cave. After his death, he had his scientists place her consciousness into the facility to watch, test, and run Aperture science, which appeared to be a bad idea, all things considered.
It was a morality core they installed after I flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin to make me stop flooding the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin.
It's here we get some more sympathetic characterization from GLaDOS, and I have to again praise McLain for another wonderful performance. Moving away from lore and atmosphere for a moment, how does the gameplay loop hold up? Being stretched to around 4 times the previous game's length, it should definitely result in a bit of redundancy. Well, it should, but because of what I praised the first game on, that being considered, deliberate, and overall fun puzzle design, I enjoyed my whole playthrough. The tools that made up the previous game's puzzles are all still here, though implemented in new and different ways. In hindsight, the original tests were, well, for lack of a better word, primitive. At the time, I'm sure this wasn't the case. I mentioned it a few times, but portals as a mechanic are no longer some incredibly unique thing like they were in 2007. The tools themselves didn't really lean into any massively interesting cohesion. You put blocks on big buttons, you redirected the balls using portals, and you dodged around turrets. However, in the sequel, each individual tool has at least one pairing with another mechanic. It's really cool. I can't stress enough how awesome it is to me to see this level of expansion done in a second title, whilst also keeping the spirit of the original alive. It's so nice to see a game add more interesting and enjoyable mechanics while also removing the issues the previous title had. Seriously though, everything here is still wonderful. The atmosphere is incredible, the voice acting is so animated and lively, both the visuals and the sound of the facility are still here, but changed slightly on account of being in a different part of Aperture, and the puzzles are best in class. Boss fight's still lame though. Actually, no, I tell a lie, it's cool. After surviving the part where he kills you, you traverse closer and closer to where Wheatley operates, very similar to the first game. However, when you reach him, he tells you he watched a recording of you killing GLaDOS and won't fall for the same trick. He then falls for a slightly more elaborate trick.
Warning, core corruption at 75%. Reactor explosion timer destroyed. Reactor explosion uncertainty emergency preemption protocol initiated.
Which all culminates with you putting a portal on the moon and throwing him into space. After he's dealt with, GLaDOS saves you, kills Carolyn. Whoa. It's kind of fucked up. And then tells you to piss off. Not before, however. Fun fact, all of the sounds you're hearing is actually Ellen singing, and it's really quite what the fuck is that? Shell is then sent to the surface, long after every single living thing on the planet is dead, where she presumably starves to death, and/or is eaten by antlions. But hey, Companion Cube, alongside being an incredible addition to the series, it also added the community workshop, where players can make and download maps made by other players. Sure, there are some real duds in here, labyrinthine, bleak rooms with about as much ambience as flat grass. But I digress, it's really cool. The other addition being a co-op mode. And as I'm writing this, I'm unsure if I got to play with a friend before this video's out, so please refer to your screen and let me know if I have any friends whatsoever. You're orange, I'm blue. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, what? That is so weird, what?
Does it make you do it?
I think, yeah, it does. Yeah, what?
Oh, I can see you through my pelvis. Now send that laser across here again.
Ow! Okay, I get it.
Yeah, okay.
Nope, wrong way.
Oh yeah, we can go. Send me to the fucking. Oh. No. Stepping on that button turns that off.
Oh, wait. Oh, I get it. Okay.
And now I can put what color?
Put your red there. Put your red. Yep.
Fuck, we're smart.
Oh my god,
man.
we're so fucking smart. Both Portal games are great. Both, I feel, again, are revolutionary in this medium. I spoke previously on this channel about Kane and Lynch 2 and how I felt it was revolutionary for its constant mindless violence, speaking to how desensitized we are to said violence. But that, for a start, could be accidental, and if not, were underlying themes with an admittedly sloppy execution. Portal and its sequel, however, need not hide behind anything. They are shining examples of this medium's potential. And still, despite it coming up on 20 years, Jesus Christ, they're an absolute wonder to behold and play. Usually at this part, I tell you to go play the game I've talked about, but you already have. And if you haven't, it's like consistently $2 on Steam.
Goodbye, my only friend. Oh, did you think I meant you? That would be funny if it weren't so sad. Well, you have been replaced. I don't need anyone now. When I delete you,